I'm Ashton from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Ram, core contributor of OpenLedger, here to talk about AI agents, payable AI models, the intersection of AI and blockchain, and much more. Ram, thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Hey, Ashton, thanks for having me here. I'm very glad. Glad to see how this one goes.
Yeah, definitely. I am super excited to learn more about AI agents and how the payable models work. I've seen a lot about AI agents recently throughout the Twitter sphere and across Web3. And I really feel like I need to learn more because I need AI to take over my workload so that I can relax more. And I feel like that's a part of what this technology that's being built is meant for. So I'm excited to dive into your insights into it. I would love to start out by hearing a little bit about what your team has built at OpenLedger and how that relates to that, and then we can dive into all the details.
No, absolutely. Maybe I can start with some introduction about us, if that helps. OpenLedger is a data blockchain for AI. We've been in this space building over a year right now. Um, if you take a look at current market today, right, most of the models that we see, which are being used for the current chatbots like ChatGPT or other platforms out there, they use a large model, right? They use an LLM, which is proprietary of their own or a foundation model. But going forward, when AI becomes massive and it's going to be used in every other sector, presumably, helping Ashton do his chores as he tries to enjoy life, right? You would want the AI to be um, very domain specific, right? The model should have capabilities to execute certain tasks which are particular to that particular domain. So a large LLM would not be suffice. Even it would have context. It would be good enough, but it would not really do the right job in the most precise manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is where we bring in specialized models. These specialized models will work along with large language models. These are not a replacement to the existing large language models that are out there. It works along with a larger language model, where a larger language model is used to get context of what is the task it is and what's the input from a user. And a smaller or a specialized language model is much more precise and actually executes the task, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can execute it at much lesser error, lesser hallucinations, and precise outputs. That's the overall idea. And what we're building is that, right? We're building this platform where you can build like specialized models on top of us. And the first step to that is to collect like specialized data. So we have a data net on which people can start a topic around anything that they believe is going to be useful to build a model. And then that is then fine-tuned. That specialized data is then fine-tuned to build models on top of us, which are hosted in our platforms, which then can be consumed by apps and agents, which is the agentic layer on top of us, where they would use these models, which are very precise. For example, an agent, if we wish to, want to be used for like trading, like a trading agent, it would need a model which has some very good insights about trading as a knowledge, and then probably have some insights about like Web3 Alpha, right? Has some news about what's happening in the industry, what has happened over the last 10 years, and then probably an additional rack to it to understand the current market. So that you would need a model like that for you to actually probably invest $1 million in that agent so that it can actually make you $10 million, right? Because it needs to have all of that context to make very important decisions autonomously. It's not a bot where you use it just to execute your task. It's an actual agent which has its own brain to go ahead and do stuff for you to where you can actually make money. So it needs precise model to give it instructions to do the right thing. And that's what we build, right? We build models which can help these much more purposeful agents compared to what agents are today, which are more just meme materials and it shouts out tweets. If you want to bring much more serious and purposeful agents, you would need models which are going to be useful for that. So yes, that's the platform. We have the data layer, the model layer, and the agent layer, and all of this brings together to build a whole AI ecosystem. And a lot of people are building various parts of this, and we're building an entire ecosystem around that.
It's very cool, Ram, and I feel like I need to know more about the SLMs, the small models, because ChatGPT and the LLMs are great, but they can't do everything that we need them to do without our permission and asking them every time and following up. And really, we're still doing the work. They're just helping out. But from what I understand, the SLMs will be able to do something more precisely, especially if you're in a specific niche or an industry, whether it's Web3 and crypto or any of the specialized industries. There's so much information to know. People go to school for 10 years to study and learn from the best. How can the LLMs know every single thing in the world and execute it perfectly at low cost? Is that right?
Yeah, so I think it's a right example. Think of LLMs to be sort of like your generalized knowledge, and like smaller or specialized models to be, very specific models, or like an intelligence which has a certain particular data fine-tuned to it, so it knows that very precisely. It's an expert in that particular domain, right? So, and that's how we've been using, products today, right? If we take a look at it, an OS is like an LM, and an OS would provide you with the general task that is required, and then you would have apps which do very specific tasks for you. You would have, and like if you take a look at search, you will have like Google search to do like your basic search that is required, and then you would have like very specific searches like search engines for restaurants, search engines for your job to do very specific needs, right? So that's very similar how this market also is evolving. As you rightly put, LLMs are very general purpose, and then there are specialized smaller models which do very specific work.
So how does that differentiate in building a small language model at OpenLedger, getting the data and the information, the input into the model? From what I understand with OpenAI, it sort of scrapes the internet and also uses the user contributed inputs to learn from that and then get smarter. But with getting expert information, for example, in a small language model, do you have to have the experts give all that information and input it into the model? Or how does the data differentiate from the LLM?
Yeah. So if you take a look at like large language models, right, as you rightly put, they're trained on largely internet data, and they scrape the internet data using various tools that are there, or use sources like Common Crawl to feed that as a knowledge to the current models that you see today. And all of these models are, as you know, has a very generic knowledge of the market, and they further kind of make it better by getting human feedback to that, so that it is more precise to what the actual user needs. But in a smaller language model or a specialized language model, you would not need that. I would not need like the entire internet's data to go ahead and train a model, because we're going to go ahead and use an existing LLM, fine tune that with very specific data. So it already has context. It already has that internet data with it. What we do on top of that is to get the specialized data. And the specialized data doesn't mean that it has to come from experts. It could come from proprietary firms, right? It could come from a business which has a particular proprietary data, which they want to contribute and they want to monetize. Like, think of this to be like internet or the early era of YouTube, right? So where when internet was open and people were just using it for entertainment, like how LLMs are used today, where you just use it for like information seeking, it's not very useful. It's not really monetizable. But once businesses start to contribute to this, right, that's where commerce happens. Like if you take a look at it in YouTube, when pre-monetization of YouTube, it is just garbage content, and like no one really cared about it. Like once it got monetized, YouTubers became a thing, and then businesses started contributing to YouTube with exclusive content, right? Which they knew that if they contribute, they could monetize it, and it became much more purpose driven. It was becoming much more useful for every other needs of us, and I think that's how models today will be. Once businesses come forward and contribute like proprietary data, useful proprietary data, you would get models that are very specific to a particular domain, which can be useful. For example, we have businesses that own IPs, large amount of IPs, who are building an IP data net on top of us. We have deepens coming forward and building a deepened data where they're contributing the deepened data, which are useful for like vision models to be built, right? And we have the Ethereum community coming forward and contributing solidity data to build a solidity model. So this is where we see like it could be like a subject matter expert, an individual, or a business coming forward and contributing data to build models which are very purpose driven for a particular use case.
Yeah, there's so many large businesses that have information that they probably wouldn't want available to everybody on something like OpenAI. If I could ask about the internal financials of IBM or Microsoft, obviously there should be a specialized language model just for them where their proprietary information is available and they can be analyzed and the AI could help them be more efficient and profitable, but without releasing that information into a generalized AI for everybody to use. I feel like that's a great use case for these specialized models.
So what I would think is that there are two parts to this. When businesses contribute, they could contribute for the greater good, so that they could contribute data which is open, which they can instead of their internal financials. There is so much data that a business has, which they can monetize, and other users can use that data to as an intelligence for themselves, right? On another hand, if that's where we come in, where we want businesses to contribute data which can be accessed by others, and which can be monetized. On the other hand, if a business wants to have a model for themselves where they don't want to use an existing model because they fear that the model might get trained on the data that provide, and that's the common fear with most of the enterprise today, right? Which are not using these closed systems like OpenAI, is because they're worried if the model just learns out of their business secrets and it just goes out to other businesses which are in a very similar demography as them. I think for that there is a separate way of business itself. They could go ahead and take an open source and then just start fine tuning that with their internal data and use it as their own local model, right? And that's how the businesses today are thinking about this. And we've spoken to multiple people on this where they would want to go ahead and take a Llama model and then fine tune that with their own data and then start using it for their own purposes. And those are the two parts to this, right? And we are tackling the earlier one where we would want them to open up and contribute data which they think can be useful for others and they would like to monetize that.
Mm-hmm. So what are the bottlenecks and the limits of growth and adoption for this right now? Why is it not already bigger?
You mean like specialized models?
Yeah, just getting this into the hands of those enterprises and then getting that information out to the public.
Yeah, I think AI has been more speculative, at least in the Web3 industry. In the traditional industry, I think it has been more experiments. People are just experimenting with it. Enterprises or small and medium businesses have just started to adopt it, right? Only when you see businesses starting to use it and making it part of their day-to-day lives, I think you would have a need for solutions like us to be rapidly growing. And that is what is happening over the last 3 to 6 months, right? We've been seeing businesses constantly use models and AI systems. Like, for example, in our overall workflow and productivity, we use AI models very often, right? Right from writing content and like creating images and stuff like that. I think as it goes rapidly, as it becomes a common phenomenon where people use models and basically AI within their productive systems, that is where you would see a rapid need for something like this. And I that's what is happening. I think 2025 is going to be that where you would see like widespread adoption of AI. You would see AI is being used by the end consumer very rapidly, where we would start using it and we might not even realize that we're actually got addicted to it, right? So that's this year, and if that happens, there would be need for something like that we are building, and we've already seen that happen. We're working with a couple of interesting projects. I think this year is going to be much more than that. It's going to be 10x at least of that.
It's very exciting to see where it's heading. I've seen a lot of growth in the interest of AI agents and the agentic world recently. So I feel like this is now the time to be paying attention to this. And Ram, where does the blockchain fit into the AI agents and the payable models, and how does it drive value to that part?
Yeah. So blockchain is always there where you want to implement code as a law, right? Where you want to inbuild a system which is completely trustless, where anyone from any part of the world can actually use a system and know that it's going to work fine, right? So I know that no one is like having a backdoor in this. I think that trustless system needs to be built for a platform like us, because you need to figure out a way where a business or a subject matter expert who has a proprietary data, which they think is a gold mine, they could come forward and contribute that to us. And then there could be someone who they don't know at all could build a model of that. And then hoping that an agent or an app will actually use that model and give back revenue to the model creator and the data provider. In order for a system like this to function, you need a trustless system like a blockchain to connect all of these guys together and bring that proof and verifiability on chain, right? For them to see what's happening. And I think that's where we use blockchain. It's more as to bring that kind of a trustless system, and I think that's one of the most important and the central point of what is OpenLedger, the proof of attribution that we do, right? We create something called a proof of attribution, which is an on-chain attribution on top of our own L2, where we basically showcase how a data provider's data influences the model's output, and how much influence was it, and how much of that is attributed back to that data provider. We show the entire provenance on chain, right from the data collection to the model training to the output, and how much it was attributed. We show all of that on chain, so that you could use that for rewards. You could use that for price discovery. You could figure out how much your data was useful and what it's priced for. And you could also explain the model better, right? Data provider knows where the data was used and how much he's gonna get paid for, and then a model provider knows how his model is actually being used and how much of data that he collected, that he made use of was actually useful for him. And then an app developer or an agent developer knows which model is he using and what kind of data is he actually accessing, right? So that he knows whether it is biased or he knows this data source, so that he knows the decision that the app or the agent makes is solid. It can be trusted. So I think that is where we use blockchain to bring that trustless ecosystem where anyone can come and work together and be sure that they get attributed back.
Yeah, I think that there's real value in that. It sort of reminds me of either like NFT creators or artists, where you're creating something, you're adding that onto the blockchain. Through that trustless manner, you will get paid for the value that you drive or the value that you've created with the data, or a Wikipedia and how it should be, where if you contributed the information, if other people want to use that and utilize it in AI models, you should actually be getting rewarded through the blockchain, and you can ensure that happens through a trustless manner.
Exactly. And I think that is always one of the biggest plus points of blockchain, right? Where you could bring in people across the globe to come forward and contribute to something which is a common mission among a lot of people, right? You can't see that happening with a centralized system. I don't think a centralized system is naturally built to be like that. And that's why blockchain is like really connects people together, right? I've been telling this to a lot of people that decentralized GPUs is a great POC of how crypto can add value to AI, because it just brought people across the globe to contribute GPUs, And that made the price of an affordability of GPUs much, much more lower than what it is in the centralized platform. And that was just possible because there was a trustless system that can connect all of these guys together. And that is what we are trying to do with data, as simple as that. We're just collecting data and we're building better models, which can be easily available at a lower cost to people. And it helps people bootstrap and build like innovations on AI. And that is simply what we are doing. And blockchain is a great driver for that to happen.
Very cool, Ram. And at the beginning, you gave an example about giving your AI agent $1 million and having him trade for you. I want to dive a little bit more into the payable models for AI agents and what are the other potentials for that. Is it true to say that the AI model would have its own crypto wallet and it could be on a certain blockchain, or it could be using stable coins or other currencies, and it could be able to manage transactions for you? And how would that work?
I think of payable models as basically like if you contribute to that model, it's going to pay you back, right? So that's the simple thesis behind that. And what can we contribute to a specialized model? The biggest changer in that, the moving point is data. So if you could contribute data to a model, you get paid back for the data that you contribute. We make sure that attribution happens, and every time this model is being used, we make sure that if your data was part of the process of the outcome of the model, you get attributed for that, and based on that attribution, you get rewarded. As I told you, you can discover a price on how valuable your data is. You could better price your data. You could provide much better data to have much better revenue and stuff and so. So it's basically a model paying back for the data providers, and that's why it's a payable model.
And all data is not valued the same. So if you have more, is it through a price discovery and the demand of the specific AI models in how valuable the information you input into a specialized model is?
So I think price, not as you told, I think data is priced very differently. It's very relative. A data in a particular country would be much more valuable compared to another country just because of certain needs that we have. A data in a particular domain could be much more valuable than a data in a particular domain by another group of people. So it all comes down to how valuable your data was for that particular model, right? And that is known when the model is being used and the model is being paid for. If the model was used extensively and your data was one of the most useful data out there, and you get attributed more, you get paid more. You just know that the data that you contributed was valuable. How people today, like if you index to Google and if you had the right information, Google is going to pick you up, and then you're going to get more users, right? Very similarly, when you index your data to a model, if that model is being used extensively and the model gets paid, you're going to get paid more, and that's how the price discovery happens.
And how far along is OpenLedger with the ability for users to come in and add data into specialized models or create new models and also have those models available for people to use?
Yeah, very soon. So we're going testnet in about probably like few days more. And it starts with a common data pool that we are collecting, which is basically internet data. Think of that to be the first step where we're creating a data intelligence layer, which uses your bandwidth, like an end user's bandwidth to collect internet data. So that's the first step. And the second step to that is to actually let people contribute data on top of us, like a data net, right? Which I explained to you. The ones that are building on top of us are building on closed beta. So we would open up, they would start coming up with their own test net versions of their data nets. And it could open up, it will be permissionless. So anyone could start their own data net and start contributing data to that. And then that would evolve on to opening up the model where people could start hosting models and start fine-tuning a model with the particular data they collected, or provide that data itself as a RAG to that model, so where it is much more easier and quicker, where anyone can start using the model with that particular data source as a RAG. And you would see that happening in the next 2-3 months, and you could start testing that out as well.
Very cool. So if somebody who didn't consider themselves an expert, but they wanted to contribute or learn more, the first step is actually just contributing your internet power, and you don't really have to have specialized information to contribute to the network.
Yes. The first step is that. It's as simple as that. We would want this to be as wide as possible, as much as community to participate. So the first aspect is to just provide your bandwidth so that we could use that bandwidth to consume internet data. And it's not like we're going to go ahead and scrape the internet again, right? We are going much more deeper, where we are verticalizing on various topics that is being collected and refined there, so that we can have a much more larger and domain-specific internet pool. And then, when data nets are contributed, if you don't have enough information there, you could access this data pool as sort of like your data layer, right? Where you can, if you don't have any information that you need, you could probably index on this, you could search on this and figure out if you have that information. So that is why we're building this, and we would want the community to contribute for that. And you could, with just an internet connection, you can start doing that. And then the second level is a bit more, expert contribution, where you either be a subject matter expert to contribute to some data net. Let's say it's about trading. You would have traders contribute for that. You would have a trading company which has a lot of information about on-chain trading, let's say, to go ahead and contribute for that. So that's a much more higher and much more intense process compared to the one that we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And with that testnet launch and the iterations that you're talking about after that, what is the best way to follow along with the launch and get started and learn more about how to contribute or how to use specialized LLM models?
So you would see that more on our website and our Twitter. So the testnet would be running for the next 2-3 months, and then we would aim for mainnet. We would love to get community's feedback on what we're building. We believe in collective output, and we are one of the core contributors of OpenLedger, and we would want the community to contribute as well. So we would use testnet to get feedback, and probably the next few months, as I told you, we'll go mainnet, and where it can be accessible live and anyone can start using it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to test it out and see how these models specifically work. I'm very interested in learning more about SLMs and specific AI agents that you can earn money from, or you can use data from others that might not be available on an LLM, because there's so much data that still needs to go inside of AI. We're very early. I'm excited to see where OpenLedger is going with this. So thank you so much for the time, Ram. All the best with everything your team's working on, and let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you. It was lovely talking to you, Ashton, and I hope to see you soon.